When I first began to teach about rest over 20 years ago, I had a friend who struggled to grasp what I was saying. He kept talking about taking Sunday afternoon naps and things like that. And while I'm not opposed to an occasional nap, especially as I grow older, I like those Sunday afternoon naps a lot more. But emphasizing physical rest was not my original intent. I've lived long enough to see enough. What I mean is that I've seen lots of people burn out. Burnout is commonly recognized in the business world, we know that, but there's also plenty of burnout among those who are involved with Christian ministry. And having experienced it myself, I can tell you that burnout isn't any more pleasant than seasickness, which isn't any fun at all, but that's another story. Although a lack of physical rest is often a contributing factor, burnout can also result from doing the wrong work or working the wrong way, or a combination of the two. When I talk about doing the wrong work, I'm referring to a focus on tasks that are largely outside of a person's skill set. And it's often because of conflicting motives that people find themselves laboring in areas that they really were not designed for. My pastor sometimes uses the example of a person who excels at sales. Consistent and repeated success at selling might bring a promotion to sales manager with much higher pay and, of course, a title. But the skill set required to manage salespeople is different than the skill set required to sell. So someone who is an excellent salesperson might get a promotion, but flounder in the new role. And because that person has now become accustomed to the higher pay, he or she might be hesitant to give up the manager position. Thus, you have someone who once swam like a fish now struggling just to stay afloat. But of course, money isn't the only issue involved. In the world of ministry, taking the role of lead pastor can easily feel like a soothing balm to an insecure identity. However, not everyone who's called to ministry has a skill set to pastor a church. And before long, that balm can become a source of constant irritation. So for whatever reason, developing unhealthy motives comes all too easily for us. To be the most knowledgeable in the room, to have others depend upon you, and to carry a title such as leader or pastor, all can become food for the insatiable ego if we are not careful. Furthermore, the weight of ministry and the burden of caring for other people can quickly heighten the desires that we have to control people and circumstances. Attempting to serve in ministry without severing the roots of unrest will lead us to the doorstep of burnout. And if because of fear we do not learn to say no when appropriate, a steep price will be paid by more than just ourselves. Our loved ones, our families, will also be affected in a significant way. As Christians, we'll always be challenged to live a lifestyle of peace and rest in a world of seemingly overwhelming needs. And as uncaring as it might sound, I am learning the value of staying in my lane, and focusing the bulk of my efforts on those things for which God has gifted me. Having explored the world of motives then, and having hopefully made progress in aligning our lives with God's good design, we also want to consider our personal skill sets in light of our vocational responsibilities. And while I briefly touch on this issue in the book, I recommend the more involved effort to explore the topic of personal gifts and abilities. But be advised, such a step might lead a person to a place of crisis if a chosen vocation is realized to be a bad fit. And depending on the situation, considerable faith and courage might be needed if the person decides that it's time to make a fresh start. Of course, there are always economic pressures, and those have only grown in recent years. And while most business leaders will proclaim the value of rest for their employees, a large percentage of them see people mostly as expendable resources to help increase the flow of dollars. So combining the greedy tendencies of the business world with the rise of modern technology and its continual presence in our lives, we can see that the corporate West is facing a perfect storm for burnout. All these issues help to highlight the importance of developing Sabbath disciplines for physical and mental rest. When I began this book, I didn't realize how powerful the connection was between motives and Sabbath practices. I just didn't see it. But that all changed as I further explored the roots of unrest. You see, purifying our motives by cutting those insidious roots will make it so much easier for us to develop our personal Sabbath disciplines. And by developing those disciplines, we will in turn help to purify our motives. Practicing the Sabbath as a weekly observance, the physical Sabbath, does wonders for our motives when we approach it in the right way. What a message this is for our day. We have become such a task-oriented culture, and so much of our existence focuses on productivity. And that can become a huge problem if it throws our lives way out of balance. Of course, numbers matter when we consider the impact on individual lives. I get that, and I am not in any way denying the importance of numbers. But our work can also ring hollow apart from healthy and meaningful relationships. Even worse, if we fail to develop healthy Sabbath practices, we risk catastrophic collapse. We risk the collapse of our families. We risk the collapse of the organizations that we have labored so hard to build. So many things that we have labored nonstop to accomplish can be lost if we fail to develop healthy Sabbath disciplines. For example, those who have motorized vehicles understand the importance of preventive maintenance. If we skip that maintenance for the sake of time or money, our negligence will come back to haunt us. That's just reality. In a similar vein, those who fail to value God's ordained rest can expect a catastrophic collapse at some point in their future. It might be a health crisis, or a family crisis, or a moral failure. Really, we can speak about a myriad of problems that might develop when we fail to acknowledge our need for rest. So by honoring Sabbath times and seasons, we're able to slow down the frenetic pace of life, to reset our hearts, and to remember the things that matter most. Sabbath times and seasons enable us to invest in those areas of life that matter most. Now, of course, for many of us, we value our labors, our vocations. We value the work that we do when we're on the clock. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that God actually designed it to be that way. But we still need rest. We still need to take breaks from our labors. And if we fail to develop healthy practices, we will become less and less productive in our vocations. Now, I understand that Sabbath practices might be difficult to establish. I certainly have had my own challenges in learning how to take a weekly Sabbath. And we might feel as though our efforts fall far short of perfection. I think that's probably more the norm than the exception. But I can assure you that they will be worth it in the end. That we will benefit, our loved ones will benefit, our jobs will benefit when we learn to establish healthy Sabbath disciplines. Now, finally, I would encourage you to consider delving into specifics with the people in your group regarding Sabbath days and seasons. Rather than simply acknowledging the need, how awesome it would be if each person left this study with a basic Sabbath plan for the next 6 to 12 months. And that's something that you can help them toward. Have a great meeting.